Warning, this opening has been known to make people's eardrums explode and scare the shit out of cats. Converted man here. The Laws of Info, Part 2. Now that I've exploded your cats out of your ears, let me proceed to the analysis of this video. But let me address semantics real quick because it does tie into this video. The video itself relies upon us missing the semantics that it employs. It flashes by with the amoeba being the simplest form of life and goes on with the presentation without giving us any information about the amoeba, which is what I pointed out in my first video. It relies upon the semantics of simple. Yes, the amoeba is a simple form of life, but in what way is it simple? If we're talking about DNA on its own, the DNA of the amoeba beats the DNA of the human. If we're talking about moving parts, people beat out the amoeba because people have more moving parts. So it just kind of depends. And if we're going to argue over that, we need to make sure that we define what we mean by simple or complex life and so on and so forth, which means giving information that the video doesn't bother to give us. And now for the Laws of Info.
One of the things that you'll notice that Jesus never did, I'm not kidding, he never did this. He never went about the business of proving God. That's right. He never, like the rest of the Bible, said, okay, let me try to persuade you that God exists. In other words, he was a presuppositionalist.
What logical fallacy has he performed? Oh no, not him. I'm not even going to answer that. Let's move on.
He knew what Romans 1 said. Everybody knows who God is. Now, they don't know Jesus. They've got to hear his name.
Ah, yes, circular argumentation as well as a special knowledge claim. How I have missed this obnoxiousness. It's always good to see you again. So Jesus, who is in the Bible, knows about this thing that's also in the Bible, and that somehow proves that that's true. Okay, and, yeah, right. Oh, and I know that Jesus knows that thing in the Bible. Yeah. Moving on.
But they know who God is. They just suppress the truth in unrighteousness.
Pre-assumptionalism fails because it's built upon so many logical fallacies. But as in my other video, I would say that there are also theological reasons to reject pre-assumptionalism. This idea is just being self-generated from nowhere.
So we really shouldn't need to go about the business of trying to prove that God exists.
Now for some parting words from our sponsor, the Bible.
And also there was the Great Commission where basically everyone's told to go tell everybody about this, but let's just forget all about that.
You got some proof for God?
Why, that's a very good question. I found this video called 50 Proofs of God. Let's look at that. Beep, beep, beep. Dun 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 dun. Arguments are not proof. Arguments don't qualify as proof. My singing will make you know that arguments are not proof. Even if they're logically valid, arguments still don't count as proof. Whoever told you that is totally wrong. Arguments are not proof. Bum bum.
Okay, punch one I'm going to call the info uppercut. When's the last time you walked into a library and asked, hey, where are all the books that have been written by mindless products of natural laws? The librarian would probably laugh at you and tell you that no such books exist. They don't exist because they can't exist. Why not? Because first of all, it's just common sense. The words that form the message in books always originate from a person with a brain. Or to say it a bit more scientifically, the message of the book, the purpose, comes to be understood by the orderly placement of the words, design, and information. Ah, information. Now anytime we find info, these basic laws always apply. apply. Number 1, matter doesn't spontaneously produce information. Number 2, only a mental source, intelligence, can generate new creative information. In other words, just like those books that couldn't originate without a mind, neither could life. Why not, you ask? Because we know that DNA contains information. Therefore, the laws of information science apply, which means the information in DNA couldn't have spontaneously generated, and that a mind is behind the information. Period. No exceptions. Look at it this way. The simplest life form we know of is an amoeba, and it contains as much information in its DNA as 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. So, are we to believe that there's no way a message in a library book could spontaneously generate, but far more complicated messages in DNA that contain 1,000 times more information could have? Not likely. You see, when it comes to life or anything else that contains information, the laws of information science confirm the necessity of a creative mind. And guess what? In the very first book of the Bible, it just happens to mention that. In the beginning, God created. Bam! Uppercut lands on the chin.
Excuse me, sorry. This video, yes, it has logical fallacies, but it's just so easy to point out the fallacies. I'm going to go ahead and eat my lunch. I am very sorry, but it's just I haven't eaten in so long. Deconverted Man, making you hate bananas since 2013. As you'll recall from my song, and whether or not you liked it is something I'm sure many of you are going to tell me in the comments, but please do so civilly. My ego can only take so much. Arguments are not proof. So even if their entire presentation was free from logical fallacies, it still wouldn't be proof. So what is proof? Empirical evidence? A repeatable test? Those things would be proof. If I have empirical evidence, I have the proof. If I have a repeatable test, I can establish proof. The system of logic has rules that you must follow to get to a logically coherent conclusion. And if you don't follow that, you must be skeptical of the conclusion, even if you have proof that the conclusion is true. You would still have to be, within logic, skeptical of it because the argument failed. It is possible to insert incorrect premises that are in reality untrue and come to a conclusion that is also untrue, but the logic would be perfectly valid. All men in Ireland are green. Joe is from Ireland, therefore Joe is green. Perfectly valid. From start to finish. Everything that I just said was valid. However, I give you an outright lie. How do we know it's an outright lie? Well, because we can explore Ireland either directly or indirectly and find out if all men there are green or not green. This video would have us believe that the argumentation that I just produced here is proof that all men in Ireland are green. Wow. So anytime I make a logically coherent argument, that is now proof of what the argument is arguing for? No. But even if we said, okay, that's how things work, all men in Ireland are green because you gave a logically valid argument. Okay, if that was the case, it's not. But if it was, then if I have an illogical argument, then it's not true. So if I said, all men in Ireland are orange, Joe is from Ireland, therefore Joe is green, then the conclusion is false because we have said that arguments establish proof. So I would have no proof if the argument was invalid, and I would have proof if the argument was valid. So even if the video is being honest that an argument is proof, then the fact that the video offers us illogical arguments means that there isn't proof. Alright, so let me leave you with the blooper at the end, but first I want to say the thing that I always say. Unless and until we have a logically coherent argument, we must be skeptical of the claims. You know what? I wish I could say that you've hit infinite fallacies. Never wrong. Shut up.